I am going to draw on a Chalcolithic, late Neolithic site from my own survey to provide an example of historic sites for our course. Um, it has a parallel with Çatalhöyük, so you can kind of meld the two together this way. So this is Sivritas Tepe, a prehistoric stone knapping site in western Rough Galicia. So I received permission from the Turkish government to conduct a regional survey, surface survey, pedestrian survey, in the region of Rough Cilicia. You can see the blue box there. It's on the south coast of modern-day Turkey. And you can see from the topographical map down below, it's a very narrow band of shoreline. It goes from sea level to about 6,000 feet in about 20 kilometers, basically straight up this way. There were a number of Roman communities along the shore that are well known because they have monumental architecture. Tepe, Salinas, Antioch, and these were relatively small places because there's not a big agricultural plain behind them to sustain a large population. On the other hand, there are the highlands and resources that can be extracted from the highlands, particularly um, uh, timbering resources, cedar up in the mountains, and that made it very attractive for shipbuilding enterprises. So the record suggests that after the era of Alexander the Great, successor kings tried to occupy this region in order to get at the shipbuilding timber. There was a local population, Anatolian population, that was very xenophobic, and we'll talk more about their settlement pattern as time goes on. One of the problems we have with the survey is that the sites on the coast are almost entirely Roman, the architecture, the pottery. We really couldn't find earlier layers of settlement using survey methods, and it concerned me that we were missing something. And in order to understand the economy of the region, we had to kind of take it up. So we sampled different um, ecological niches, the shore, the midlands, and the highlands to see how all of these were exploited and when they were exploited over time. Sort of processual archaeology, we're just trying to get a sense of when did population expand and contract in ancient times in this narrow coastal plain. Here's a view of it, and the area of interest is this sort of ridge that projects out from the Taurus. We walked that ridge in 2003 and then again in 2008 and came up with some interesting results on the Bichkiji River, which means the Woodcutters River in modern Turkey. Here you can see the red dots of the various sites that we found. One point I would make is that there are about 5 small urban sites. Let's put it this way. They called themselves polises in their inscriptions in this upper Highland Canyon. Probably very small, but maybe some total of about 1,000 to 2,000 people. In a Highland Canyon, which today probably supports no more than 500 people, so even more densely settled in antiquity than it is today. Just another view, and we're going to focus on two in particular, Courage Occur. You can see it there, RC, Rough Cilicia. 0303 means the third site we found in 2003. And then RC 0802, Sivritas, second site we stumbled on in 2008. Here's the team walking. I brought Purdue students with me. We kind of line up like an army platoon, depending on what we're looking for. And we walk in a straight line, and the students carry little wire flags, and they look for broken pottery and surface remains, and they flag it when they see it. We walk a certain distance. I like high visibility terrain because we get the more bang for the buck that way. When we finish the unit, then we'll go back and we process everything. Here you can see the various in yellow, the various units that we walked, and we started at about 900 meters and worked that way down to about 600 meters, down to the base of the river there. And on the way down, here we see Karachakur, this butte right above the modern village of Karatepe. You can see how it's rigorously terraced. This is mostly rocky terrain, but the farmers there are trying to exploit the land to the maximum. In the foreground, we have almond trees, and then below that butte, you can see terraces for wheat growing. And it's while we were walking the wheat terraces that we stumbled on a Obsidian flake right here. an indication of something very early. And we also found these fragments of hand-turned pottery, so not wheel-turned, but hand-turned pottery, and that puts us back before the Bronze Age. We also found classical, so this is Iron Age or classical pottery, some sort of a bowl that's clearly turned on the wheel, and it has a thickened interior rim. We found Roman pottery as well, so it's clear that it was occupied over a fairly long period of time, or at least off and on over a long period of time. One of the interesting finds, this is a wheel-turned strainer pot. You can see how it's turned. It has kind of a lead handle in the front. The back is gone, but it had this spout with these little perforations on the top. And my assumption is that this was some sort of an ancient teapot. These mountains are famous for a particular herb they like to make tea out of. It's known as adajai. The locals will tell you it's good if you have an intestinal tract problem. It's medicinal this way. And the farmers just pick it. It grows naturally up there in the hills. And so maybe this is an adachai teapot. Put it in, pour in the hot water, and then they use the strainer in their spout to prevent the herb from getting into your teacup. So that was all at Karajapur. We kept walking down the hill, and right below it there was this sort of promontory with these rock outcrops projecting upward in a rather bizarre formation. On the way down there, we encountered what appears to be a marble hand scraper. There's a profile drawing of a hand scraper from Chatal Huyuk, so that kind of caught my attention. And then within the rock outcrops themselves, we started to find what we call debitage, so uh, stone residue of stone knapping to make projectile points. In this cave where my student is standing, they found a whole pile of these things. So there's a view of the knapping area from above. And in its interior, we have all these sort of scarps, and they have deep runnels in them. And it's clear that these were worked by humans to get at the chert that projects from the limestone. So in the upper left, you can see the debitage. This is just rejects. But on the right and down below, you can actually see some of the flakes and sharp-edged, um, drafted stones that were clearly hand-worked. And again, we found dozens. Still, you couldn't really say it was ancient until we stumbled onto this. Here is a projectile point or an arrowhead with my drawing to the right. Down below, there's a drawing of a projectile point from Chatal Huyuk. Not that it's that big a deal, but they are remarkably similar. We also found these blades, broken blades. That thing in the left has a hole through it. Maybe it's a loom weight. But then we have some sort of scraper and different work stones of different types too. The white, I think, is onyx. We also found more hand-turned pottery. So here is a ledge handle with a very large cauldron. You can see how it's black. The fabric is blackened, exposed to fire over and over again. The handle itself is about 10 centimeters across. So this is a very large one. And then here it's maybe a storage jar. It seems to be slipped with lead, and it also has kind of a crude ledge handle, and it was hand turned. And then we have various stew pots that were wheel turned. Here is a Google Earth view of the area we're working in. You can see how it's sort of been carved out. It's very irregular, and those are actual sort of what we call well areas where the stone outcrop has been worked into scarps from all the projectile production. Now, one of the problems is I saw these piles of modern debit in the area as well, especially that one on the right. It looks like someone used like a saw or a grinder to grind down and make points. And we were told by the locals that in the upper left, that's a threshing sled. And that they would go to the Sivritas to get the flint stones to put as teeth in the threshing sled, and that they still were using these things maybe as recently as 25 years ago. So we had to be certain we were dealing with an ancient site because it could have been a lot of that debitage could have been modern. But like I said, the arrowheads and the hand-turned pottery confirm the picture. But it shows that this site had a value, a resource value, right through to modern. If you want to see how the modern threshing sled is, go to this link right here. I'm not sure it's going to work out in the video, but there you can see one in action. And so what we see is there is this cluster, and actually this slide is showing you the various places where we found lithics. And we can see that this clearly was a important horizon for lithic production in this region of western Russia.